Nestled amidst the Sierra Nevada mountains lies Keddie, California, a small, picturesque town, offering a sanctuary from the hustle and bustle of urban life. However, beneath the serene facade of Keddie, lies a chilling tale that shattered the peace and left an indelible mark on the community, the Keddie Cabin Murders. In the shadows of Keddie, we embark on a journey to unraveling the enigma surrounding one of America's most curious crimes. Through meticulous investigation and first-hand accounts, we delve deep into the heart of darkness that engulfed the quaint residential cabins on the fateful night of April 11, 1981. Sue Sharp lived in a quiet cabin resort-like area, where she resided with her 5 children. John was 15, Sheila was 14, Tina 12, Ricky 10, and Greg was only 5 years old. On April 11, 1981, Sheila walked over to her friend Alyssa's house for a sleepover, like she regularly did. Alyssa's house was only 15 feet away from the Sharp residence, as they were next-door neighbors. Little did Sheila know that the next morning would be the most horrific morning of her life. On Sunday, April 12, Sheila's friend, Alyssa, and the rest of the family woke up to get ready for Sunday church. Sheila decided to go back home a little after 8 a.m. As Sheila walked into her home, she saw a gruesome scene. Blood was splattered on every corner of the home she knew to be a warm and loving environment. She instantly saw a body covered with a blanket, and in the same living room there were 2 bodies tied together. After walking into the most horrific thing she had ever seen, she ran back to her friend Alyssa's to get help. After getting help, she went back to her home with Alyssa's older brother Jamie. They walked behind the house to see if anyone else was injured. In one of the back windows they were able to see her brothers Ricky and Greg asleep with a friend and next-door neighbor Justin Easton. But one huge question comes to light: where is 12-year-old Tina? Jamie and Sheila wake up the boys and are able to get them out of the house through the window, before police arrive on scene. Jamie later admitted to having briefly entered the home through the back door to see if anyone was still alive, potentially contaminating evidence in the process. After the police arrive on scene, they could see signs of a struggle. They could clearly see that someone had fought for their life and were certain it was Sue who did all that she could to save herself and her family. Police were able to identify the body under the blanket was that of Sue Sharp. Sue was discovered lying on her side near the living room sofa, nude from the waist down. They quickly identified the 2 bodies tied up together as John Sharp, who was only 15 years old, and his male friend Dana Wingate, who was over for a sleepover. John and Dana suffered blunt force trauma to their heads caused by 1 or more hammers. Autopsies determined Sue and John had both died from knife wounds and blunt force trauma, and Dana died by asphyxiation. Still, Tina is nowhere to be found. Police were able to identify the murder weapons as they were left in the home. They found a hammer, butcher knife, a bent steak knife, all covered in blood. After searching the rest of the home, they quickly found that Tina is missing. The brutality of their deaths and missing 12-year-old sister sent shockwaves through Keddie, shattering the illusion of safety that once enveloped the town. What drove someone to commit such unspeakable acts? Was it a crime of passion, a calculated act of violence, or something far more sinister? In the wake of the murders, the town grappled with disbelief and despair, struggling to make sense of the senselessness. Yet, amid the chaos, whispers of suspicion and speculation swirled, casting a shadow over the community's fragile peace. As investigators started to look for leads, they quickly located and interviewed Sue's husband Jim Sharp, who she had separated from back in July 1979. Investigators learned that Sue ran away with her children due to Jim abusing the children, specifically 14-year-old Sheila and 12-year-old Tina. Sheila told investigators that both her and her younger sister were sexually abused by their father for years, and more importantly Tina was his favorite. Jim Sharp was now suspect number 1. After speaking with Jim, it was discovered that he was in Connecticut at the time of the murders. This put him almost 3,000 miles away from the crime scene. This made Jim a dead end for the murder case. While investigations were looking for more leads, they started to interview the children that were there the night of the murder and come to find strange occurrences. The neighborhood friend who was spending the night, was interviewed. Justin Easton was said to have been hypnotized to see if he could remember anything from that night, and he surprisingly did, even though he claims to have been sleeping the entire night. Justin had very vivid dreams, the first being two men getting into a fight with Sue's son John and his friend Dana on a ship, where they were later thrown off. These mysterious men in the dream had a pocket knife and used the knife to cut Sue in the throat, then fleeing on lifeboats. Police decide to hypnotize Justin again only to hear another vivid dream where he talks about Tina, who has been missing since that night. In this dream, Tina wakes up while the men are brutally murdering the family. Tina walks into the living room only to be swept away by one of the men and never to be seen again. On April 20, 1981, investigators suspend the search for Tina Sharp as they suspect she also lost her life that night. 6 weeks after the murders, police develop sketches of two men based on the neighborhood friend Justin's descriptions. In a press release accompanying the sketches, the suspects were described as in their late 20s to early 30s. One stood between 5 feet 11 inches to 6 feet 2 inches tall with dark blonde hair, and the other between 5 feet 6 inches and 5 feet 10 inches with black, greased hair. Both wore gold-framed sunglasses. One of the eerie descriptions and sketches resembled Justin's stepfather Marty Smart. Marty and his wife Marilyn lived in a cabin just across from the Sharp family. They also attended the same typewriting class as Sue. Marty was accused and admitted to having a temper along with a criminal record. During investigations, Marty admitted to missing a hammer with a blue handle that was never recovered. Investigators never arrested or interviewed him after this. Shortly after his initial interview, Marty ultimately moved to Oregon and died there from cancer in 2000. It has been reported that Marty confessed to a few people that he was responsible for killing Sue and Tina Sharp, but not the two boys, John and friend Dana. Which leaves the question of who else was involved, who could have been the other man in the sketch. Marty Smart had a friend who was living with him during the time of the Sharp family murders. His name was John Bobade, but everyone knew him as Bo. The two only knew each other for a few weeks before moving in together in the Smart residence. Bo and Marty met at the Veterans Administration Hospital as both were receiving treatment for PTSD. The night of the Sharp murders, Bo, Marty and Marilyn were out at a local bar. Marty and Bo were both wearing business suits. This was out of the ordinary for the men to wear, especially at the local bar. People speculated that they wanted to be noticed and seen that night specifically. During the investigation process early on, Bo lied to police officers twice. He stated he had lived in Keddie longer than he had, and he stated he had worked as a police officer back in Chicago for quite a few years. It was noted that Bo had a crush on Sue Sharp, but she rejected his advances a few times. Even though Bo had lied to police, he was still cleared and was not a suspect. Years later, Marilyn confessed to receiving a letter in the mail from Marty shortly after he left Keddie that read, "I've paid the price of your love, and now that I've bought it with 4 people's lives, you tell me we are through. Great. What else do you want?" In 2016, a man who was casually using a metal detector at a dried-up pond near the entrance of Keddie found the hammer that Marty had lost years ago along with a hunting knife that were sent in for further analysis. In April 2018, new investigators on the case were able to match the DNA from the murder scene to a known living suspect. Since then, no arrests have been made, and the names have never been released to the public. Based on this new evidence, investigators believe that a total of 6 people may have been involved in these gruesome murders. The story of the Keddie Cabin Murders is one that defies easy answers, a puzzle with pieces scattered across the windswept landscape of time. Despite the passage of decades, the shadows that shroud the truth remain as impenetrable as ever, leaving us to grapple with the uncertainty that lingers in their wake. In the end, the legacy of the Keddie Cabin Murders is not merely one of tragedy and loss, but of resilience and hope. For the residents of Keddie and the Sharp family, the journey towards closure continues, fueled by a steadfast determination to confront the shadows that haunt their lives.